Topics may be triggering for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, welcome to Recovering with Friends. Tonight we're going to talk about how we knew that we had a problem and ended up in recovery. Tonight I have Lauren Leonard and Kayleigh Daly with us again here.
I'm not Kayleigh Daly anymore.
Kayleigh Bordeaux.
Thank you.
We have Kayleigh
Public
Bordeaux
debut
with us.
right here.
Yes. Yes. So what was that, a couple weeks ago that it changed to Bordeaux?
A month today. Today's the 7th. I got married on May 7th. Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll get back to it. So how do we know we needed to be in this area? So let's start with you, Lauren. Can you...
Well, I think I knew when I was like at bottom, not really so much at bottom, but like when I had a problem was when I started getting anxiety. Like I never had anxiety before I did drugs, but as soon as I started doing it, it was like on the go all the time, like just nonstop, and like waiting for people and waiting on messages from people and waiting in parking lots and just no chill at all, just always on the go. And that was the only thing that I was focused on, was just getting high. And there was nothing else that really mattered at all, so it was just like chaos all the time. And
yeah. It's exhausting.
when it turned into chaos is when I realized I had a problem. Not that it changed anything, because I was still with the chaos, so...
I don't know. I was really good at convincing myself that even when it was super chaotic, that was normal.
Right, it just became like the new normal. And like boring days were like chill days. I didn't want anything to do with that. It didn't feel right if I wasn't on the go.
If I was having a relaxing day, I was not relaxed.
Right.
Because there should have been something going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, over the years, were there any times where like you kind of like, oh, maybe not, kind of keep going? I know for myself personally, I used to take like time off. Like I would get a little drunk or whatever, and be like, okay, I need to take a little break or whatever. But I never thought it had a problem because I never did it every day.
The experiment.
Right. I think in the beginning, like, it didn't ever feel like a problem, but I was into heroin pretty quick. I started doing pills, like, I did my first Percocet, and then a month later I was into heroin. So there wasn't much of, like, an in-between. As soon as I started doing it, I was on the go. Like, there was never a time when I didn't have a problem with drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about, like, before that? Did you ever, like, have problems with, like, alcohol or other things where you kind of question it?
Not really. Like, I mean, I drank in high school and stuff, but drinking was never really my thing. And so once I started doing drugs, I was like, this is it for me. Like, the drinking never really... I mean, I would, like, at parties and stuff as a teenager, but it just never caught on with me. I'd always get sick first, and it wasn't fun, so...
Mm-hmm.
See, I know, like I said, with me, where I never did it every day, so I thought, well, if I don't do it every day, I can't. I thought the alcoholic had to be the person that's, like, drunk every day.
Right.
That's their thing they do.
The guy under the bridge with the paper bag.
And I was actually probably into recovery for 4 or 5 months before it, like, occurred to me, and I was sitting in me and going, oh, wait, I did have a problem with alcohol. And from hearing other stuff, I mean, you don't have to, like, need to drink every day to have a problem with alcohol, or need to do drugs every day to have a problem with it. But I mean, I went through like those questions for probably 10 or 15 years without ever thinking, because I didn't use every day, I didn't drink every day. But kind of looking back at now, I wish I'd have like paid a little bit more attention to some of those warning signs. It's like,
Oh yeah,
it just didn't click.
See, for me, I had moments where it was like, okay, you've gone too far. Now you need to take time out and like, no more drugs or booze for a little bit. Like, I'd put myself in time out. Like, okay, we can't do this for a while. And then take a couple months off and be like, all right, I've been good. I can reward myself. And then, like, right back to it. And then have to do the same thing. It was like a roller coaster of stuff. But I was pretty good at convincing myself that I didn't have a problem because my bills were paid, or I never missed work. But even though I was showing up to work late and getting all these like last chance agreements with work, to the point where they were like, you have to transfer to a different office because you've come in or missed work too much. Even then, I didn't that was like one of those moments where it's like, oh, okay, so I got to put myself in timeout again and take a break from stuff. But I really didn't think I had a problem until my fiance died from a drug overdose. And then it was like, okay, I'm done doing those drugs. But then I was drinking every day, and then I started doing different drugs about a year after he died. And then it was like, I still didn't think I had a problem because, again, I was going to work and stuff until there was a morning where I had a coworker show up to my house and wake me up at like 8 a.m. when I was supposed to be at work at 5:30. And I was the only one in my department. So it's really noticeable when you don't show up and you're the only person that's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And it's a rural hospital. They take note of that. And then my coworker showed up to wake me up. I was like, maybe, and then I lost my job at the hospital. Even then, it was like, I look back at it now that I'm sober, I can look back and be like, your life was unmanageable. But during that time,
I think, like, hearing, you speak or whatever, like, a lot of us, especially growing up this town, this area and stuff, where if you're a functioning alcoholic or a functioning addict, we feel like we don't have a problem.
you don't have a problem.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're
Because your
taught
business,
around here.
yeah. But it's so crazy how the addictive brain can totally manipulate you, and you have such delusional thinking. Because even in the mix of that, I was saying my bills were paid, but I was constantly borrowing money and making up some crazy excuse why I needed it, lying to my family, pawning things, and then, like, I never actually pawned stuff and, like, lost it. I'd pawn it, and then I'd go back and buy it back. But still, I was, like...
I always lost my shit.
I was all... But, like, I think back on it, and I'm like, oh, my Lord, like, how crazy was that? Super unmanageable. And then there's, like, these highlights of, like, the OUI and other really scary situations that I did to traumatize my whole entire family. And it still did not make me go, okay, this is enough. It made me go, okay, I'm going to take a break, but I'm not going to stop. Like, I had no intentions of stopping. The one thing that made me stop completely was the day I died of a drug overdose. And lucky for me, God gave me a second chance. If it wasn't for that, I'd still be out there running around. Ripping and running, I heard that today. Ripping and running, that's what I'd be doing.
But yeah, I mean, you talk about, like, keeping your job and paying your bills and all that type of stuff. I know, like, kind of went through a lot of that, even though it's just barely by the skin of my teeth doing it. But, like, I
Smoke
wasn't
and
losing
mirrors.
stuff.
Yeah.
I kept my jobs. I did all that, but I never lived up to potential. What I potentially could do, it totally hampered that. I heard a good saying one day that made a lot of sense. I was talking to a lady that had been in recovery for a long time, and she was going, I think it was her nephew come up to me or something, going, well, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to quit drinking for a bit. I don't know if I really have a problem or not. What do you think? And, like, I'm taking the break to kind of see. And I thought was, if you need to actually tell yourself you need to take a break, there's probably a good chance that you have a problem.
Yeah.
People that don't have a problem, they don't have to think about taking a break.
Right.
Yeah.
They just don't drink.
Right.
Or don't use drugs. And, like, I did a lot of that, and I always could justify my actions by going, well, I mean, I got a little too drunk, so I took a month off from drinking, or do this and that. And, like, for years, I, like, after I had my first child and stuff like that, I quit, like, drug use for the most part, and, like, stopped doing it, going, okay, it's time to grow up. But I never really, like, quit. It was like, you know what, I'm not going to do it for now. That was kind of always was in the back of my mind. Instead of going, you know what, this isn't good for me and I have a problem. It just kind of, like, so I still, once again, thought it was okay and dabble a little bit here.
Yeah.
Another thing that I gauged my, like, do I have a problem was if I had physical dependence. And I was one of those anomalies that never got withdrawals. Like, I'd go months using daily, regular basis opiates, and then would stop for 2 months and never have withdrawals.
Yeah. I was
Ever.
sick all the time, like, constantly sick.
And I wasn't. And that's what it's like. So and I'd sit there and watch my significant other curl up in a ball on the couch and almost in tears because they were having such severe withdrawals. And I was thinking to myself, what is your problem? Like,
I mean, like Seth talking about taking a break, like the only time that I was taking breaks was when I couldn't get drugs.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd be sick as a dog for 2 or 3 days, and there would be like that little glimmer of light, like, oh, maybe if I just make it through these days, I'll just get clean now. But then I would be able to pick up and I would be right back at it. Like, there was no break time in my mind. Like, my break time was when I was dope sick, and that was it, like, until I went to prison. So
let me throw this kind of out there too. So, like, we all talk about, like, drug of choice. We all have a drug of choice that we like. Now, I know myself and a lot of other people, like, we try to switch it up, thinking, well, you know what, that I shouldn't do that, so I'm not going to do that anymore, but I'm going to dabble with this instead. I mean,
I did that.
I did that too.
Which is probably a sign we have a problem right there.
Like a huge problem. After my fiance died, our drug of choice was opiates. We did Percocets and stuff, and then when Percocets were not easily available, we switched to heroin. And after he died, I refused to touch opiates ever again. But about a year, I started drinking like the minute he died. I started drinking every day. I just could not deal with my reality. And about a year after he died, I picked up cocaine. Never did cocaine before. It wasn't my drug of choice. And that's kind of how I justified it. Well, it's not heroin. You know, I was like, it's not heroin, so it's not bad. Like,
I always big joke when I was doing something. At least I ain't smoking meth. Well, I found myself smoking meth.
Right? Like, how do you get there? Oh my gosh. It's funny how we can convince ourselves how easily we can convince ourselves that it's okay.
So, I mean, for, like, people that are listening to this stuff, probably, like, if you're switching drugs to, like, try to help, there's
a sign you have a problem.
I know it was for me.
I know with me, like, I got in trouble with heroin. Heroin was what I really started doing drugs with. But then I was sick of being dope sick, so I started doing coke. Because in my mind, well, I'll just do coke when I'm dope sick. And then that completely changed my whole addiction.
Did it even help your dope sickness?
No, I mean, a little.
I'm just curious if it even helped.
In my mind, I think I thought it did. Yeah. But, like, I was just so focused on getting messed up that I didn't really care, you know, like, it was just something to do, a distraction.
We would drink, like, we would just drink to try to get through that.
I was always like, no drinks for me, just drugs, thanks.
Yeah, but,
right. So here's, like, another one that I hear a lot and stuff, and like I said, it took me like 4 or 5 months in recovery before I even crossed my brain that I was really kind of an alcoholic or whatsoever. But the one I hear all the time, and I don't know how many times this applies to my life, is just like trying to find like the right combination or the right drink. Like, well, if I just stick to a mixed drink, or well, if I just stick to beer, or if do you know what, tequila's not very good for me, but vodka's okay or whatever. And like the insanities with that. And I mean, I hear a lot of other people say that same thing, but I don't know how many different combinations should I try. Turns out I wasn't good at drinking with any of them.
No. Right. Oh, yeah, same. Like, no hard stuff. I'm not going to drink any shots. I'm not going to have any shots. I'm just going to have, you know, seltzers or wine or whatever. No. Never, ever ended up. Yeah.
I always wanted to just get a little bit of Coke. Just a little bit of Coke. But I ended up spending 10 times the amount of money on Coke than I ever did heroin. You know, and it just got so much worse once I started doing that, for sure. Yeah.
Another thing I heard way back in the day is like addiction is like when you like can't stop, and to me I always thought that meant that like couldn't stop, like needed it every day or whatever. What it turns out for me was like once I started I couldn't stop. Mm-hmm. If I had a half a gram or if I had a quarter ounce of cocaine in my pocket, it didn't matter. I was doing it all that night.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Once it opened up the bag, there was no putting that away.
Yeah. 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 Don't stop till it's gone.
And I mean, I guess there's other people out there that they have this, they can have moderation.
Some people do drugs for fun. Yeah. You know?
It blows my mind.
I can't do that.
They're once a year go to camp and like, hey, we brought some party favors. Yeah, no.
Not me.
Nope, not at all. And for me, it's like, oh, go to camp, bring party favors, and we brought a whole lab with us. Like, you've been there.
I've seen it, yeah. Yeah.
We're going to try them all tonight.
So if there's like kind of like one thing you'd say that was really kind of like a sign where it's like, or it's something maybe you missed over or whatever, that's like, oh man, looking back onto it, that's like, that's when I should have known I had a problem.
Oh, the looks that my kids gave me. Like, what are you doing, Mom? Like, I look back on those, they haunt me. You know, when your kid doesn't want to live with you because your life is so insane and she's going through her own thing and you're not even being a mom and she just looks at you like in utter disgust. That should have been the moment, like, what am I doing with my life right now? And instead I just was like, got pissed at her. Like it was her fault or something. That I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And then now sober, I look back and it's like, holy moly, that should have been the thing that kicked me in the gut right there.
Yeah.
And how insane and selfish I was. You know, my brain was just complete mush. But a lot of pieces to pick up now. And
a lot of pieces.
A lot of pieces. And still picking them up, you know. Those relationships that you damage sometimes can't be fixed. You know, no matter how much work you put into them, it's like you try your hardest, but it's like I remember specifically the look on her face, and I like look back on it and it's like, why? But you know, you're just not thinking right. You're messed up and you're selfish, and yeah, that was probably one of those times.
So is there anything you kind of think of, I'm not talking when you actually decided that you had a problem, but like something like before that you're like, man, that should have been a wake-up call, or that should have...
I would say being in Androscoggin County Jail dope sick when I first got arrested, that should have been my moment.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It wasn't at all. And I went to rehab after that. I did IOP after that. I went to another rehab after that. And every single time I'd get like 2 or 3 days clean and then I'd be right back at it. And I think like the moment I knew that I was like done was when I was waiting to be sentenced. And I had been up for like 3 or 4 days before that doing coke because I knew I had court. I knew I was going to prison, and my parents were crying in the back of the courtroom. And I was sitting there cuffed up in my seat and I was thinking, wow, it's nice and quiet in here. I could just take a nap. I've been up for 3 days. But it felt like it's finally over. Like I knew like yesterday was my last day getting high. Like I can't do this anymore. Like I'm going away for a while. Like this is my last chance. If I can't get it right this time, I'm going to end up dead when I get out. And
yeah.
I remember like the day before I got released, I was like crying in the bathroom to one of the girls I was friends with. And I was like, I'm just so scared to go home because I've been totally away from it for all this time, you know. And then I was like terrified to leave because I didn't know, left to my own devices, if I was going to be able to stay clean or not. But
now, while you were in jail, did you do any kind of programs? Did you go to any meetings or anything like that? So
they have meetings in there. They're led by the prisoners themselves, which can kind of be an issue sometimes because there's a lot of cattiness in and amongst it. Yeah. And it's almost not even worth going to. Like, I had a big book that I would read on my own. I think it's great that they do meetings in there, but it's a very different environment.
Helpful at least?
I did. I mean, I read so many books in there. They have you in like all sorts of therapies and classes and stuff like that. And at first I thought they were really stupid. I hated them because like here I am getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to therapy in prison. Like, this sucks, you know. But looking at your life now, do you think that you apply it to your life today? I do, without realizing that I'm doing it sometimes. Like all of the different like mindfulness techniques and like thought switching and all the different things that you learn about in therapy, like I just do them without thinking about it. So.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah,
I love that.
So I think for me, probably the biggest like sign, or I should have noticed, is all the justifying my actions.
Gosh.
Like, oh, well, I made it to work, or it wasn't that big a deal, or I was drunk, that's why I did that. I said something stupid because I was drunk, big deal. I mean, how many times have we said that? But also justifying it where it just kind of, one, looking at somebody else that might be doing the same thing as you, and I'm justifying my actions and going, that guy's a freaking idiot. like as I'm doing the same damn thing, or justifying by always trying to look for that guy that is the big idiot and go, well, at least I ain't him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't do that. And I mean, I just so much justifying. If I didn't really have a problem, and I mean, at the beginning it was fun. Then it went to where I wouldn't say I was necessarily an alcoholic or had a SUD or whatever, but it wasn't healthy behavior to where it was like a full-on SUD. I mean, I was an addict and an alcoholic.
Have you explained to the viewers what a SUD is?
Substance use disorder. But having like a full-on SUD or whatever. So it took time to get there, but throughout the whole process, how much I just justified everything. And like having to go through those justifications. And I mean, yeah, there's always a little bit going, I acted up a little bit. But when you're time again and again and again justifying your actions and like just thinking that, oh, no big deal, I was drunk.
Yeah. And I just want to say too is like, I know there's a lot of family members or loved ones, you know, that are, you know, watching us just ruin our lives, basically just destroy them or just do some really crazy things and like, oh, that must be their rock bottom. This has got to be it this time. But we can always
We dig deeper.
go lower. Like, and that's the thing is like, it's at first, like when I would hear people say stuff like, your kid should be enough. Your kid should be enough, you know, to stop using or this, that, and the other thing. And, you know, oh, that OUI, that'll do it. That'll teach him. And it's like, we have to do it on our own. We have to one, accept that we have a problem. And until we accept that we have a problem and admit that, nothing's going to happen.
That's so true. And one of my problems is like half the people that ever like say, oh man, you got a problem, whatever you're looking in, they got a problem too.
yeah,
it's
and you're like,
hard taken from another drunk guy
so
when you go, man, you ain't got a problem. You're hammered. What's your point? But yeah, that was kind of a huge thing. But talking about rock bottom, one of the kind of the coolest concepts that made sense to me or that it was said is that it's not really a rock bottom per se, is that it's a bunch of like cliffs and levels you're at, and like you keep falling down. It's like, which ledge do you land on where you decide that it's time to start clawing back up? The only real rock bottom is death.
Yeah.
Until you hit that, there's always a lower place to get. And the problem I had throughout my addiction is I was just always looking down the next ledge going, well, I ain't that guy. Until I was.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah, no, it was definitely quite the moment to wake up in an ambulance and know. Yep.
And I guess the biggest thing I would have to say is, man, don't I wish that some of these things made sense to me way before. I mean, I could have nipped this in the butt 5, 10, maybe 15 years ahead of time because the signs are there. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. And I'm hoping maybe like somebody like listening to this conversation might be a little bit more receptive to like go, oh man, there's some stuff going on.
Yeah, so you don't have to go through everything that we just went through.
Right.
It's
just too much.
Yeah.
Hard. I mean,
damage control
up in like the 90s and then the early 2000s when I came old enough to actually drink and stuff. I mean, this wasn't really talked about much for one.
Right.
And everybody did it. I mean, growing up in Milltown, everybody got out of work. And I say everybody, yes, I'm lying. It's not really everybody. But it's a huge percentage of the people. You get out of work, you grab a beer, or you go to the bar. The same people are sitting in the bar the same night for an hour or two. It's like normal to go to work, go have some drinks, then you go home to dinner with the wife and the kids or whatever and stuff. And so it seems so normal, like almost because I wasn't any good at it. I was doing something wrong. Turns out it's okay not to be a good drinker and everything else. But if there's anything else that you could like want to pass on for like information of like looking back now, what would it be?
Rock bottom's different for everybody, and it kind of got me thinking what you just said about like where are certain people's rock bottoms and stuff, and like sometimes it just gets worse and worse and worse. And there's no one moment like that I can specifically think of that was, I mean, besides going to jail and stuff like that, but there was not a moment of clarity for me. You know, I had to be just ripped away from it to get anything together myself. So
I know it's it kind of sucks to say this. I don't want to be all like doom and gloom, but for me, it's like, you would have thought all these things would have been enough, especially after losing Adam. Like, that should have been the thing right there, you know, risking myself dying and leaving my kids with no parents. You think that would have stopped me, but it didn't, until I actually did overdose, and by the grace of God, I survived, and there really isn't a reason why other than God saved me. And I really feel like I got a second chance, and the thing that made me not want to go back out was because I couldn't live with myself. I didn't want to put my children and my family through what I watched us go through after losing Adam. You know, what his parents went through, what my kids had to go through losing, you know, their father, and what I went through. I didn't want to put anybody through that kind of pain again, and be the reason why they had to go through that pain.
Sounds like a pretty good reason, but yeah, well, thank you everybody for coming over and talking. Hopefully people get something out of it.
I hope so.
Have a good night.
You too.